So I'm delighted to be joined by my expert panelists here today for a discussion on redefining supply chains and what that means and what factors are playing into that. So let's get straight into it. Melahat, can I start with you? And from your point of view, what specific technologies are having the biggest impact on the supply chain from a procurement point of view?
Actually, this is one of my favorite topics. That
Great.
I also believe that it's inevitable, opportunities for all supply chain colleagues. Technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, IoT, and big data analysis are having a huge impact on not only procurement, also entire supply chain processes, as well as efficiencies and the sustainability. For instance, as a procurement professional, I would like to give a couple of examples for artificial intelligence. With this opportunity, we streamline and optimize our all procurement processes, and by automating repetitive, manual, and as well as non-added value tasks from the system to build more efficient time and also the free up the timing to focus on the decision making in a strategic way, which is I can say from ordering processes, vendor selection, as well as some data entrance as well. Besides this, we are also using artificial intelligence as well as the machine learning to understand the market dynamics when we decide on buying strategies. By also looking at multiple factors which is coming from data analysis, I can say heavy data sets that we are talking about comes from like a source of the materials in terms of stock conditions, historical data, weather predictions, stock conditions, macro and micro fundamentals, geopolitical situation, then we will able to come to the right decision on the contract timing as well as right material cover strategy, which ultimately brings the value to the companies as well as our consumers and customers. I believe last not but the least, in the meantime, as supply chain colleagues as well as procurement, for instance, IoT provides real-time data on the material stock management, which enables the supply chain colleagues to optimize their inventories by avoiding stock out, even overstocks, which also ends up waste management as well. We can also see that there is a huge support on the sustainability perspective. One of the, the great initiatives that we are collaborating with our suppliers, shipping companies, mostly to optimize our supply chain, also bring the transparency, visibility for the shipping processes. Like in transition, we are make sure that our products are under safe condition in terms of temperature, humidity, as well as right time on time delivery processes to the customers. As I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, and technology is inevitable, but in the meantime, utilizing technology in your system to make sure that there is a good balance of using the capability of human being. In the meantime, the technology is giving the efficiency.
And building on what Melahat had to say there and the key technologies that are making the supply chains more efficient, can I come to you, Nadir, and can we talk about the e-commerce space specifically, and how has that transition been in the F&B space from traditional supply chain to a more e-commerce focused supply chain?
So being a heritage UAE brand, and especially one that's so well recognized in the region, logistics and distribution is paramount to how we get from a B2B situation to empowering our consumers to actually get our product and have access to the product. As someone that does their own distribution here in the United Arab Emirates, I can say that the biggest catalyst for us to get our innovation and R&D out to our consumer has really in recent years been e-commerce, and having that relationship with the commerce players that are going to, from your phone, get you your product to your house. And this is furthermore evident in the fact that our biggest problem, being a smaller company but being such a great brand, is that we can't replenish our supplies in traditional retail as fast as e-commerce has empowered us to be such a significant player in this space. And we do potato chips, we do all sorts of snacks, we do baked products as well. And the best way to get our messaging out to our consumer as well is far better exemplified by an e-commerce platform where you can look at the product, you can see the ingredients we use, because we're proud of the ingredients we use, we're proud of the R&D that we do to get this product to the consumer. And I feel like in my position, in our brand, it's much more transparent on your phone than it is on the traditional brick and mortar aisles. And I feel that if this is the transition going forward, then it's one that is a larger brand but a smaller distributor we would like to empower. This further translates to when you look at the GCC as a whole, which I think all the stakeholders and shareholders are in this room would like to know about, is that, again, I talk about this catalyst where when we are in Saudi Arabia, when we are in Bahrain, when we are in Kuwait, and we are in Oman, and we are coming up with new products that are building on our brand, but offering something completely new to the market. Again, we look to the Noon Minutes, the Talabats, the Deliveroos, the Amazons to get our products to the consumer as fast as possible. Another great change that I would like to emphasize on why e-commerce is really, at least for our brand, one of the drivers and one of our greatest sales strengths is because they are empowering us to be a better distributor by doing the heavy lifting themselves. When you come to brick and mortar and traditional commerce, we're not a brand that has a fleet of 100 vehicles over here, so it's really hard for us to replenish. We have a product that, sells quite well and goes out of stock quite fast. And for me, it's really hard to do the replenishment. So this is another kind of point that I would like to emphasize when it comes to the fact that working with great partners in the e-commerce space, we get that replenishment. We can get our out-of-stock products back in stock in a matter of days. We wouldn't have to wait for, the next week or as such. So again, when we do look at new markets, when we do look at going beyond the borders of not just the UAE, but beyond the borders of the GCC as well, these are partners that resonate more with at least our ethos as to how we would like to be presented going forward. And it's one that I feel that being an SME or being a brand, everyone should use this set of tools to really empower themselves to become the brand that they really want to see, because that's what happens. It's moving from the aisles in your traditional stores, which are obviously still an extremely important part of doing commerce here in the UAE and as well as abroad. But what I'm trying to say is to get your brand message across, to get what you're doing, as an innovation hub, you really have to use the tools that e-commerce presents because they are making strides in this industry and the government is embracing them to do so as well.
Rashid, if I can move on to you next then, and we're speaking about some of the tools that are enabling e-commerce to kind of grow to new heights. When we talk about some of the key technologies, we're looking at AI, automation, robotics. What impact do you think they have on the supply chain? And if you could kind of elaborate on those for me, please.
Okay, so I'll take my product as an example. So the supply chain really needs to be looked at like a gun. The automation, so robotics is really a buzzword. You're going to look at automation in this case, and automation just means engineering. So in my particular case, I needed to basically deploy enough product to every consumer, and that would be, it has to be the optimal amount. So this gun has to shoot exactly 6 bullets towards its targets, right? Not 7, not 8, not 4. So I need to have the optimal rate of fire. So in this particular case, I had to build my own machines because the machines don't really exist for my product. So automation came from the very raw ingredients. So I started a machine shop in my factory, and I created a laboratory, and I took a course at MIT for advanced manufacturing with artificial intelligence. And basically, I created a pumice isolate lab inside my factory, and then I created the automated process that went with that. So from the ingredients to the very, so I have a nitrogen and vacuum process. So that doesn't really exist for these types of these jars. And that was the very first part. So I just turn a knob, and it now just gives me the amount that I want. The other part of the supply chain process in regards to the e-commerce industry would be the fact that I use artificial intelligence sort of like this. So let's just say there's a guy in the crowd and he wants 100 bottles. So I can deploy that 100 bottles. Now let's just say when the bottles are reaching him, so he doesn't want them anymore. So artificial intelligence, specifically the program Perplexity, that's what I use, it will tell me that, hey, since this guy doesn't want it, there are about 100 people in his area that might want it. So a percentage of them would want it. So the artificial intelligence would basically help you, it will give you ideas on how to minimize and identify new innovations to basically help you out in your process.
We've heard then how technology is a great enabler for e-commerce and how it is offering opportunities to companies to scale and to grow. But Ben, if I come to you next, what are some of the challenging aspects of integrating technology into the supply chain?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Ben, I'm with Crowe. So we're a 10th largest accountancy and focused primarily around companies' operations, compliance, and business technology. And I bring that up because when we talk about technology, especially in the food and beverage space, we have to think about it in a couple different terms, right? In terms of like your core base business technology, and that's where I want to start with, and then we can get into how that gets into e-commerce, Q-commerce, and can enable some more advanced stuff like we have through the AI spoken about before. So when we think about the risk and opportunities behind technology, I want to start in two different categories, right? Obviously, we've got order qualifiers, we've got order winners. When we think about a small, medium enterprise working in the food and beverage space. So on the order winner, the primary order winner for the small, medium food and beverage industry is obviously their product, right? It's the good or service that they're doing. And I think with the companies that I've worked with who are in that startup or scale-up phase here in the GCC, so much of that owner, that founder is, hey, how do I make the product the absolute best? If I get a product, I'm going to win in the market, right? And I think, as most of us in this room know, it's a little more complicated than that, right? Because we start looking and say, okay, how are we going to displace another competitor, in this region, most of the time a foreign competitor, at a traditional Horsia, right, distribution channel, or through an end store, a supermarket store. And that becomes a really challenging problem. First, operationally, we have to get a bunch of things in place from a business technology perspective. There's the boring stuff, the lot traceability, right? And the full supply chain control. If we don't have that, we're not going to get picked up by a supermarket. We're not going to get picked up by a Horsia group because we have to have the core technology in place to be able to say it. But it's more than just a compliance thing that we need to be thinking about as we invest in growing our small and medium-sized food and beverage companies here in the UAE and the GCC as a whole, right? There's a lot more to it. For example, just because you got a great product and just because we're meeting compliance of traceability, well, we have to make sure we're up to the global standards, right? We got to make sure that, a growing company, for example, is ready to comply with Global GAP or ISO or whatever that it has in its particular sub-industry there. And I think what we see, there's a huge investment. We've been talking about it all day, right? About food security, about getting local produce, local manufacturing here in the UAE and the GCC. What I'll say is on the technology front to support that, there's been big investments by the accounting industry and by the tech industry. Salesforce, Microsoft, and Oracle, specifically Oracle, that's been doing a lot of work lately to make sure that from the business support side, the business technology side, we've got the right skills and expertise to support those amazing entrepreneurs, those amazing CEOs of those small and mid-sized businesses to bring that, to make sure their business technology is there, ready to be compliant, but also ready to be very easy to use, easy to interact with those customers, whether, again, it's the Horsia brands, whether it's the supermarkets. Now, when we think about technology, I'm an accountant, right? And you can tell I immediately went into the boring compliance aspects of it. But there's more to it, right? And I'll give two quick use cases of where business technology in the last couple of years in this region have actually made a big strategic difference for companies too. The first one I'm going to reference is they were a meat distributor based over in Saudi Arabia, and they had a very large share of the Horsia high-end meats and seafood distribution in Saudi Arabia. But that was all. That was their only channel. And albeit a little bit dated, then COVID hit, right? COVID hit in April 2020. They had nothing, right? All of the Horsia shut down. It was all on lockdown. And for them as a competitor in KSA, their main competitors were these large multinationals importing in, competing against them into their market. Now, fortunately for them, they had invested in the right business systems ecosystem that they were able, in a matter of just 6 weeks, to pivot from being a pure distribution to Horsia to a quick commerce model. What that meant is in a matter of just 6 weeks, they got an app up, they were able to get the marketing campaigns out to get people to download the app, and they were able to start delivering direct to consumer on a 3-hour notice period from that order placement. So when we think about advances in technology, yeah, AI is a great talking point. There's a lot of awesome, exciting stuff happening as the use cases were there. But I think also the velocity of the tech cycle, of how these tools for small and medium-sized businesses, how you're able to actually implement those at speed, at a cost that's reasonable for an SME, but then to be able to use that technology to compete against much larger companies with that same ease of doing business, that's fascinating. You know, I'll give one other example here. When we talk about how do we make our SMEs competitive from a business in general in this market, and how business technology can help drive that, I work with one produce agritech here in the UAE. And as they've evolved, obviously it's their product and the taste of their product that's the main driver for them to be able to get shelf space and be able to grow an amazing company here. But one of the things we've been looking at is saying, okay, well, how can we use emerging technology similar to the e-commerce, similar to the Q-commerce? How can we use that to drive another competitive advantage, at least here in the local market, to say, hey, the food being produced here is better? For them, they're in a situation that's a very short shelf life product. So what their business systems have enabled them to do is traditionally, when you think business systems in manufacturing, you think of a make-to-order situation, right? Where you're waiting for your customer orders to decide how much to produce. Well, when you're growing food, the situation's a bit different, huh? But what they've been able to get into is what we like to refer to as a harvest to order, where literally they can wait till the orders come in that day, that night before, harvest it off the plant based upon the number of orders, so that way they're able to deliver the produce that's literally less than 24 hours since it's been on the plant. That right there can be a differentiator, but that takes proper investment in business systems by the company. That takes proper investments by the big tech players, Oracle, Microsoft, and others in the ecosystem here. And that takes a lot of professionals like everybody in this room to actually make that happen.
Melahat, coming back to you then, and something that Ben mentioned there about compliance. And when we think of compliance in the F&B space, we look at food traceability and food safety as well. From your experience, how is technology bringing that aspect of the supply chain on?
Yeah, definitely. I believe technology plays a pivotal role in enhancing food safety and as well as traceability in supply chain model, as well as providing the full transparency and also being able to manage proactively all the agenda in food safety. For instance, using some technologies like blockchain provides great tool to track your products from farm to spoon, that you can also identify it in value chain. If there is any risk, any issues for the food safety, contamination, or any failure in the production, you can identify these risks and the gap proactively to build your mitigation action. Besides this, IoT is also another big technology that you can track your products on time with transparent conditions that if necessarily a product requires different type of specification, you can track accordingly. For instance, some humidity conditions, temperature conditions, or even some risk in the contamination. With this tool, you can have the full analysis that identify the risk based on the historical data, on also the fundamental inputs that create some risk. Beside this, there is a great tool. I think very recently we have started practicing building the QR code of the products, which gives the huge confidence to the consumers. They will able to come back to the origin of the products, then they will build their traceability. Besides this, and there is also some blockchain and as well as data empowerment tools that you can also build end-to-end product visibility from shelf to even the waste deliveries. In these conditions, a supply chain team can have full value chain analysis in a proactive way that also builds some actions in advance. For instance, as IFFCO, we have diverse product group, like from cold chain to dry chain, I can say, from ice cream, fresh chicken, flour, and etc. So as IFFCO, we need to utilize this kind of technologies to make sure that full safety conditions will be provided in an efficient way to also eliminate any human error conditions in food safety, which is ultimately going to the consumer sides. That's why using technology in analysis, big data analysis, especially food safety, is an inevitable the approach. Then companies and also even the governments build this capability internally.
Yeah, I think consumers are getting more demanding and they want to see that traceability across the whole supply chain.
And awareness, of course.
Yeah. Changing kind of notes then, Nadir, a little bit to quick commerce, and let's dig a little bit deeper into that. How has quick commerce affected your business, and what strategies have you kind of put in place to ensure growth in that aspect?
Well, when I'm commenting on an issue like this, the first thing I have to address is the challenges of quick commerce, especially when you're a brand that's trying to be a jack of all trades. Now, what do I mean by this? As a manufacturer, especially as a manufacturer of a heritage brand, my concentration should just be making the best project and products for my end consumer. That is our focus. That's what we will always focus on, and what we innovate to diversify, what we pay attention to our customer to be able to grow our internal R&D as well. And this is our concern. However, being a jack of all trades, we take the challenge on for being our own distributor, being our own marketer, being our own PR agency, and really trying to do everything under that scope and umbrella. So the first challenge with quick commerce, as I mentioned before, is replenishment. Because when you don't have a fleet of 100 vehicles where the service is only our products, it's not like being a big distribution house where we would have 500, 1,000 plus products, where that would be our main initiative. My main initiative is to make the best product possible using the best ingredients possible within our ecosystem, empowered by the UAE government, because we do have great import, and Jabal Ali does us a huge favor in terms of the fact that we get to get the best raw materials on planet Earth into Dubai with great ease. Now, where it becomes a challenge is that I have to replenish things almost daily as a brand, because when you have a product that is so well loved, being a 40 or 42-year-old brand, you have this difficulty doing your own supply, whereby when your product sells out, your challenge starts by putting it back on the shelf. If I could have daily replenishment solved, that would be the best of my issue. Would the company have to be spending 100% of its time, energy, and effort to do so? It would be. So that really brings me back to the fact that e-commerce has empowered at least my brand to get the message out, so that when we do new flavors like ghost pepper or habanero, that honestly, when you see on your phone, you have that intrigue that, okay, like how fast can this packet of ghost pepper get into my house? And quick commerce does provide that venue. E-commerce does provide that venue because it puts that decision-making power into our consumers' hands, and it gives me as a brand the power to have that visibility to them. So as I said, it's really tough as a brand and very challenging to try and do everything. However, striving to do that is something that as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, where we try and make that difference, where we try and be on that cutting edge to do so, and technology helps you just that much more. Knowing where your vans are, knowing what your stocks are. We implement and use NetSuite in our business. We try and do this for export markets too, whereas we have the best visibility to get our product into the market, because when you have not the biggest distribution network, you have to face these challenges in order to thrive and to grow your business. So this is really something that has empowered us. And the best thing about the UAE ecosystem is that the retail space keeps on growing. They keep on looking to the well-established brands to grow their own presence. And honestly, the amount of startups here, a lot of them are local Emirati e-commerce startups, and they are empowering themselves through using products that us local manufacturers produce. So I believe the ecosystem is in the right place. I believe us here as the food and beverage manufacturers group is doing everything it takes to empower brands like that, us, innovate with newcomers into the industry, and it all serves a common purpose that by using technology, by using traditional brick and mortar and empowering the e-commerce space, we can really get our goals, like getting our GDP up, by empowering our own local brands, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. It's not some paradox whereby there are winners and losers. By empowering this ecosystem, you are clearly giving a path for brands like us, bigger brands, smaller brands, to thrive in this network.
Mm-hmm. And with customers obviously demanding quicker and quicker service, and that is only going to grow, they also want personalized services as well. And Rashid, if I can come to you on this, how do you go about building a supply chain that is, catering to these customer-centric needs?
How do I build a supply chain that is catered to the customer-centric needs? So that would have to be a hyper-convenient model. And what I mean by that is that look, everything is going to become hyper-convenient, and we're going to use AI for that. This one I'm looking at particularly ChatGPT's strawberry model. It came out a few days ago. So what you're really going to do is you're going to solve problems. So I don't want to wait 1 hour for a Thalabot for it to bring me sushi. I want to wait 15 minutes, and that's already done with Noon. So this is where the hyper-convenience model is going to solve problems. So it's a little bit difficult to describe, but the only example that I could truly give is what is a coffee shop here? It's a place to either sit down with your friends and there happens to be coffee, or it happens to be a place that you go and study or you work at. So the supermarkets in America, on Sundays, everything closes at 6. The only place to go to at 8 o'clock is the mall. Sorry, is the, is the supermarket. So it just happens to be a supermarket, but it's actually a place to just walk around. So artificial intelligence is going to better define these types of roles and these innovations that are within your existing, it's in the existing infrastructure already. It's just that it's not identified. So everything is going to become hyper convenient, solving a problem that everybody has. So I'm bored, so what do I do now? I go to the coffee shop because that's where I want to meet people. Okay, I'm not going to the coffee shop to drink coffee. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ben, moving on to you then, and talking about the Middle East region as a whole, how is technology adoption here in the region compared to kind of a global perspective on it?
How's it compared to?
A global perspective here in the region.
Yeah, good question. You know, I from my perspective, right, so I started as a business technologist in the United States. I came here in 2018, right? And I can tell you here in the UAE, Saudi, I'd even put Kuwait in the same group. You know, the progress of this country and this region is just phenomenal, right? From even the short 6 years that I've been here. At this point, I would say there's almost no difference. If you compare the North American market to this market into how they're thinking about business technology, the only difference I might say from what I've seen, at least in my professional capacity, is that the companies here are more ambitious, right? They're looking and saying, hey, I want to grow and build something. And part of the entire vibe of what the UAE has been able to build in this country, and I think that's why so many of us in this room are here and still here, even though a lot of us plan to only come for a few years. So I don't think that it's really too different. I would say the UAE is a leading market, and that's not just me, Ben, saying that, or from Crowe's perspective. Oracle would say the same, Salesforce would say the same, Microsoft would say the same. Just drive down the Internet City and you'll see they all have their regional headquarters here. If you look at how they've been staffing up, this has been a leading region. I can speak for the Oracle NetSuite channel specifically because that's what I work in. This has been a leading region for them in the UAE, and Dubai specifically has been the center of all of that growth. So I think that's exciting. And I think as we tie this back into what we started the day at, right, and looking at saying, okay, what is our objectives as a food group? And what is our objectives here from a food security perspective, right? Technology enables us a couple things, right? First, to quick commerce, as you were mentioning, e-commerce and quick commerce, for the small and medium-sized producers or manufacturers or growers, giving them an outlet of saying, hey, I've got a really cool product or service that I know I can sell, but maybe I haven't got to the point where I have shelf space at one of the large supermarkets. Maybe I haven't broken into one of the major distributors to get into the various different Horsia channels. Knowing that they can get to a quick commerce or e-commerce model. And quick commerce and e-commerce, when we say quick commerce, we mean something where you order and get it received within, a few hours time frame, give or take. That's available. And that's not cost prohibitive anymore for small and medium-sized businesses to do that. So I think as we look at a roadmap, at least from a technology perspective, getting more and more of our small and medium-sized businesses to get their product in the market through e-commerce and quick commerce, getting them the regulatory compliance aspects that the large consumers, the giant supermarket chains, the giant distributors are going to require of them, getting that in place so that way they can get on the shelf here. But those compliance issues aren't just for here. That's for, as we were talking about, saying, hey, yeah, we want to penetrate and get more local production here, but we also want to ultimately become an exporter. So continuing to push the professional standards there and continuing to build a stronger and stronger body of knowledge of quality and compliance professionals, not just at the large companies here, but also at the small and medium-sized enterprises, I do believe that's going to help us hit those goals that we were mentioning this morning.
And Melahat, building on Ben's point there of the small SMEs being able to compete with some of the larger companies, how do you think technology is having an impact on making supply chains more equitable and fair for everybody in the market?
Definitely. I also believe that as supply chain community as well as procurement community, we have a huge impact on our ecosystem. We can also influence the people who are also impacting the overall trade world. By using the technology, I believe that we are equally bringing the transparency and as well as traceability to treat our suppliers as well as our customers in a more fair way as well as building the equality. And for instance, blockchain is also a great tool that you can track all the transaction of the products, materials, services, and customer behaviors on the system. You can build the end-to-end benchmarking system that you can manage your customers and the suppliers in a right manner. Besides this, with this technology, for instance, IoT brings the full visibility of products and the materials coming from the farm to the table, that small farmers and the small suppliers are able to understand weather patterns, crop yields, and also the supply and demand conditions in the relevant materials group in the market, that they build their competitiveness during this criteria, which also brings some opportunity that they can compete with the global channel, whereas in some cases there are other tools like artificial intelligence that as buyers they can easily track the suppliers' environment-friendly conditions, social activities, labor practices, to make sure that their supplier ecosystem is fairly treated in the social responsibility. Besides this, there is also the good cloud platforms that if there are small producers or suppliers in the domestic market or in the region, that these platforms brings the opportunity to them to present themselves in the global platform, that they are able to compete with the global the supply scale. With these conditions, as supply chain, we have a strong influence area to also build the end-to-end traceability, not only in our system, also our ecosystem, from suppliers to customers.
Nadir, then quickly to wrap up on what we've kind of spoken about today and the key kind of trends that are taking over the supply chain when it comes to technology, what would be the one key trend that stands out to you that's here to stay for the next couple of years?
Well, I really want to save the best for last, so I haven't made a comment about AI and artificial intelligence yet, but when I touched upon the fact that I am first and foremost a manufacturer of what I would like to empower and innovate to be some of, in our brand's belief, and the market would speak to itself, some of the best quality snack foods and potato chips that you can buy in the Middle East and now beyond our borders. So what AI has really empowered me to do is to concentrate on making the best snacks I possibly can as a manufacturer. And I say this because if AI is going to enable e-commerce to pick the winners meaning what? If I make the best product, that means I will have the right consumer, and the consumer can see that and buy my product. And the more consumers are buying my product, gives me more orders, empowers me to invest in R&D more and make more new products. That's a win for me. So I am basically saying that AI is empowering my consumer to pick the best products. That in hindsight just really finally allows me to concentrate on making the best products in lieu of having the best distribution network, growing my van sales, and all these other tedious activities that a brand such as myself endures. What quick commerce, what e-commerce has really done, and it's through innovation, it's through AI, is give me that opportunity to really focus on my product and not on the other aspects that it takes to make a business great.
Rashid, would you agree that AI will be the trend that will stick around for the longest and have the biggest impact on the supply chain?
Yes, but I wouldn't rely on it too much, and I say this because of what I've seen so far. Do not ever take away the human being component to any process, and I say this because, okay, so here's an example. There was a guy who came up to me and he was like, oh, I've got my big boy pants on, and I've been, Bill Gates has invested in me, and I have a lot of money, and I'm doing all this stuff. So long story short, he created a company based off of AI research, and it was basically, I'm going to take petroleum and turn that into oil that you can eat, and then I'm going to give it to you guys. Do you think I want my people, my boys and my girls to eat something that's derived from petroleum? No. I used to, so if you ask artificial intelligence, is it great to, cultivate meat inside a lab and grow your own meat? I used to do that, by the way. And I stopped because of how unethical it was. To create that serum, GBS, you have to keep so you go to the slaughterhouse and you have to find a pregnant cow, and you kill the cow, but you don't kill the baby inside it. You have to keep it alive in a jar and harvest it. That's how you get GBS. Artificial intelligence will tell you that it's worth the sacrifice, but looking at it from a humanitarian standpoint, this is not okay. You need a human no matter what. It cannot make decisions no matter what.
Yeah, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today. Can we get a big round of applause for our panelists today?